There we go. Apologize for the, what's the word? The editing issues. But I figured, now, for any person who might be looking at this in the future, it is New Year's Day, 2021. And after the, what's a polite way to word this? Rough year that 2020 was, I figured for a change we'd actually try and set a New Year's resolution and stick to it. So I figured mine will be, I would like to actually give streaming at least a year of like 2, maybe 3 days a week. And that's what this is. So the first bit of it will, the initial plan is that half the stream, or half the week of my streams will at least be some Magic content, because I love Magic. And the other half will be kind of whatever I want to do. Might be Magic, might be anything else. Now, with that quick little aside and the apology for the editing, or not editing, the technical bits and any sort of flubs that might show up, because, you know, it's the first time. And if we're lucky, this will be going on YouTube if I do this right. But with all that out of the way, just like the title should say, if we're doing this correctly, you can't really find much in the way of good best of 3 content online, either on Twitch or on YouTube. So I figured, seeing how it's basically my favorite format, and it's more or less the only format I play, I figured, you know what, I believe I can take on this heavy, heavy burden. So, that's what this is. The first couple of these, they're probably going to be rough. They're probably going to look like shit. Sound like shit. And age like cheese. Or milk. Hi, sweetheart. Sorry, I have a sweet little cat. But anyhow, the first couple of these are probably going to be god-awful. But I figured, you know what? Maybe if some small handful of people can get some measure of, like, enjoyment out of this, then great. And at the absolute worst, it's something for me. Now, with that, our first, let's see, call it a little deck tech, will be on Izzet Wizards for, again, Historic Best of 3. These will be pretty simple, these little pseudo kind of deck techs. I'll try and go through them quick. Probably fail, as I will with, again, this whole thing, top to bottom. Hi, sweetheart, coming to lie down with cat dad. Anywho, this Izzet Wizards list is loosely based off of the Professor of Tolarian of the, or the Professor, who am I kidding, we're watching Magic, you should know who the Professor is. Did, I don't remember, it's been a few years, I believe, but he did, in one of his standard video guides for decks, he did a, like, kind of Izzet Wizards prowessy build, and Historic has come to a spot where we've actually, due to things like Amonkhet Remastered, where is it? We've actually sort of backed in, or the format has, of course, not only grown with new cards, but because Historic is adding cards from old sets in, it's growing in both directions. We've actually backed in to, I believe, that entire deck list with, again, things like Soulscar Mage. So I figured, and I've actually played with that deck enough, and I have a good understanding of how it works, so I ended up, as you can see from the list that I have, I've done a little doctoring. Of course, your mileage may vary. And if you know, budget restraints are an issue, you can go watch the Professor's video. His was a very, very budget-friendly version. Mine is not as budget-friendly because I've been playing Arena since the beta. With that terribly rambly preamble out of the way, we're just going to try and run through what the deck is, or what is in the deck. How do I word this? If you're running Wizard Tribal, at least in Historic, while you do have options, I feel like if you aren't running Adela's, you're kind of missing out on some flavor points here. But this is more or less call it a payoff card for what this deck is. Adelis is 1 and a blue and a red, 2/2 flying haste. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, all wizards you control get +1/+1, which does include itself. Now, this should be pretty self-evident what we want to do. You want to have lots of wizards and lots of instants and sorceries. Kind of like your negates or your shocks or what have you. But because we are in Historic, and Dominaria is in it, the little bits of, we'll call it Wizards synergy, but it didn't get a whole lot that came from Dominaria in the form of Wizards Lightning and Wizards Retort. It's pretty damn easy to get. I was gonna say it's certain, but it's practically certain that you will always have a wizard when you need to cast these. In absolute worst case scenario, Wizard Retort is just the baseline what you pay for counter spells. Wizard's Lightning, granted, it's no Lightning Strike, but we're really playing for it to be a Lightning Bolt, which I still believe should totally be allowed in this format. I think the format needs this, but I'm also a red player. But because we don't have Lightning Bolt and we're running a Wizards deck, we can run Wizard's Lightning and effectively figure out both things. Wizard's Lightning is normally, or at its base, is 2 and a red for 3 damage to any target. But it costs 2 less to cast if you control a wizard, which is, again, all of the entire deck. Every creature is a wizard. The only not wizard, but sort of works, is Riddle Form. But for all intents and purposes, the whole deck is wizards. Wizard's Retort is basic 1 and 2 blue for a counter target spell. Costs 1 less to cast if you control a wizard. It is OG counter spell. Pretty goddamn good, all things considered. Wizard's Lightning, 3 damage burn to the face. Or, well, face or whatever target is appropriate. Heartfire Immolator. You will also find a... It's not sort of a prowess sub-theme, there just is a prowess sub-theme, which allows our big creatures to become really scary, really, really fast, and allows you to really... It basically is what makes you an aggro deck. The synergy from Adele's is nice, but what really takes it over the top into like an actually pretty okay deck variant is most of the creatures have prowess in some form or another on top of the Adelis, giving all of our wizards prowess. We have 2 Heartfire Immolators for all of those reasons, and it is nice every once in a while you do need to have the second line of text of paying 1 red and sacking it to hit a creature or walker equal to its power. Sometimes you gotta like shoot through a blocker or a really problem planeswalker. If you don't kill it that turn, the game, you're gonna lose any hope of winning the game, because like an aggro deck, or like most aggro decks in Historic, you got till like turn 6. Spellweaver Eternal, it's a 2-drop, it's a wizard, it has prowess, has all the things we want in a creature, as well as Afflict. It's a it's a blue card that has burn and kind of reach in the same thing. It is a great card not only because it's blue and it just helps to how do I word this? Help to kind of split the colors of mana so we don't lean too hard into red. Riddle Form is just a nice one of. It is a card that if you don't have some of the rares in this list, you can add more in if you need to. It will dilute, if you do this, it will dilute your wizard's synergy, but if you don't have the cards, putting a couple more Riddle Forms in here, the deck will work just fine. It basically has prowess, and you can have it basically has prowess, and it becomes a 3/3 Sphinx creature in addition, with flying, in addition to everything else it has. And at worst, it can be a 3-mana Scry engine, which is nice and kind of needed. Since we don't run things like castles, since we are an aggro deck, We just run some basics and a smattering of all of the rare lands. You can run whatever... Don't be afraid to run whatever rare land cycles that aren't the temple. You can run the temple and you'll be okay, but again, you're an aggro deck and you want to go fast. Whatever you don't have out of the faster mana in the format, just replace them with basics, you'll be fine. With a pretty even split of islands and... Or, yeah, mostly even split between islands and mountains. Couple negates, because it's a fucking shitload of, like, very control-y, grindy, sultai-y, just... There's so many non-creatures running around, you'd be foolish to not run it. Warlord's Fury, besides just being a cheap one-cost spell that replaces itself, First Strike can be useful in some instances. The First Strike is more of the gravy. There's more gravy on top, since really we're just using it as a cheap cantrip that helps up the storm counter, more or less. Soulscar Mage, like the third best red drop of all time. Sorry, third best red 1-drop of all time, and probably the best 1 red drop in the format. Just a good card. It's 1/2 with prowess, and if a source of non-combat would deal damage to something or to a creature, it basically has wither, or -1/1 counters. I just know that mechanic as wither. Shocks, just good, much like a lightning strike. Sometimes you just want to shock somebody in the face to kill them. Grim Lavamancers. This is one of the only ones that doesn't have prowess, but because we have all of these pretty cheap instants and sorceries, again, like the Warlord's Furies and the Gates, and even the Shocks, it's not too terribly difficult to get our yard kind of filled, or pretty filled, pretty quick. If you don't have a Grim Lavamancer, you'll be fine. You can just say run more Shocks or more of the earlier, like, 1-mana cantrips like Crash Through or Warlord's Fury. Grim Lavamancer is the one card I'm a little on the fence about and might get cut from future versions of this deck. Kitu Lavamancer, the 1/2 human wizard that does a pretty good Goblin Guide impression once you got two spells in the bin. Which is not, again, with all these cheap spells like Ops and Crash Throughs and all the aforementioned things, is not terribly difficult to get. Crash Through is much like Warlord's Fury. It's just a cheap card that adds to the storm counter. And Trample is actually, with this deck, with how big your creatures can get because of the double form, or the multiple layers of prowess that comes from, like, Adele's and whatever the native creature might have, you can get very, very big off a very low storm counter, and Crash Through is honestly amazing, or it is a superior form of reach, really in general, as opposed to Warlord's Fury, but I just run them both because it was how the original list was made, and I haven't had a bad problem. And sometimes, again, First Strike is actually nice. But by and large, if you have to make a choice between, say, all Crash Throughs or all Warlord's Fury, go with Crash Through. Trample is a much more useful, evasive keyword to have in an aggro deck. Opt, just a good card. 1 blue for an instant, scry 1, then draw a card. Cheap, card draw, helps also filter your draws, adds to the storm counter. Sideboard, this is where I've, differed greatly from the, what the original source material deck from the Professor is, as I've tried to figure out, because in my anecdotal experience, a lot of the meta is very, very slow, and you almost can't outrace it. You can if you're lucky, but by and large you won't. So, because of that, we run some slower cards that can still sort of play off synergies. Niv Mizzet's just a big boy that can't be countered, and it has a sort of kind of prowess, lets me ping, which is nice. It's big, It does wizards. It can't be countered. It flies. It has evasion. I can, help you have a little bit of reach from the ping. It's pretty damn good for a slower card. Couple Chandra Torch of Defiances. It's an extra card draw engine in games that go way, way long. It can either be a ramp tool if you need it to be, but more often than it's a 4-mana red air. We'll call it draw effect, but the other modes can be useful, but often aren't. If you can, however, get to the ult, you will, regardless of how much of the aggro you pull out, you're always going to have a good degree of cheap spells, so you can really, really close the game out quick with a -7 ult. Talaran Sky Summoner is just another... This is more of a slower match in like those token matchups that go really, really wide and kind of can't win. This is, again, a wizard that will help us fight for board presence against a deck that goes wide, where normally we kind of can't deal with that. Those aren't terribly useful. Or, not terribly useful, sorry. Those aren't terribly common, but they do show up enough. Sweltering Suns kind of does the same thing, or a similar thing, in that it's a sorcery spell that helps you somewhat wrestle control of the board away from big, wide decks. Yes, it's a bit of a non-bow because you're killing your own creatures, but if it's in a deck where you need to run it, it's better to wipe your own board and live than to have a board and die. And at absolute worst, if you make a bad call sideboarding it in, you can always cycle it away for 3. Mystical Dispute. Kind of, they're in the same... Mystical Dispute is in sort of the same realm of desire as Swan Song and Pact of Negation, where, and for reference, Mystical Dispute is 2 and a blue for, and it costs 2 less to cast if countering a blue spell. Then you counter whatever the spell in question is, unless the controller pays 3. There is a absolute shitload of blue cards that are very slow that you just have to have some sort of counter for. Swan Song sort of does something similar, except that it hard counters it. The burr that it makes for your opponent is almost always worth the trade of just having a 1-mana counter like a non-creature or walker spell, basically. Pact of Negation is if you're in an opposing, or your opposing player has a buttload of sweepers and you're like 1 turn off, which is a lot of the format, because the format has like 2 or 3 shy of like 30 sweepers in the format. To where if they sweep you once and they sweep you once or twice, you've lost the game. And Pact is basically there to hopefully ensure that you don't lose the game. A Braid is good for the occasional fight for the board you have to make, or every once in a while, destroying an artifact can be useful. Now, with that through, we're going to try and go through and do, in these videos and or streams, depending on how you're watching this, the ideal goal is to get 2, maybe 3 games in to show what the deck can do. It doesn't have to necessarily be a win. So that's what we're going to try and do. With any luck, we'll keep this relatively short. Because I gotta be honest, I'm not used to talking this long. Of course, we have to see what we're going to actually go against, but we'll figure it out. Unless our game wants to cry. Oh, I thought it actually crashed for a second. I was like, what? Arena never crashes. And of course, it's you don't need really a mastery level understanding of Magic to know that, like, a good like half and half split of lands and not lands. This is like a great opening hand. I've got things to do, and I can really threaten the opponent. Temple of Malice. Let me check something real fast. Alright, everything's fine. I had to make sure that, you know, the stream itself wasn't exploding. So yeah, this is, again, pardon the any sort of technical issues that I have to take care of. Thoughtseize is fine. It's nothing really that we, like, super hate. Alright, I would imagine this is some sort of Grixis control, which is not really that shocking. Actually, we'll go... Because we'll try and play and keep as much information closest to our chest as we can. Just trying to get big and scary. Okay, that's not really that big and scary game. But this is kind of my point. Is that you can get very big very quick. I mean, fair. A little unfortunate, but what's a soul to do? We'll do you and you. Come on. This has not been... I mean... He's gonna Thought Erasure it anyway, so we might as well get some use out of the spell. Although the fact that he didn't play a creature is, like, all things considered, pretty good. Okay, yeah, this is just Grixis control. It's fine. And now we just sit here and hold a counterspell and just hope that we can slip in and underneath all of their, like, myriad of control tools. No goddamn way. Land? Okay. Okay, so this is going to be a very control-heavy matchup. I don't need to fight for value as much, since this deck is not the most adept at, like... well, it does have certain value trades. So I think if I just, like... Or I believe the plan will be to just throw in maybe a couple Mystical Disputes and a couple Swan Songs. Because these decks don't usually run like a whole lot of things you got to be really scared about. They just run a few very big things. And all I, in theory, should have to do is counter those. Maybe we'll bring in a Niv Mizzet. I'm not, like, totally convinced with that. Or on that front. Ooh, are you gonna... Yeah, please. Sign in blood yourself. Okay, we'll just go ahead and keep the Wizard's Lightning to where if he sign in bloods himself, which is smart, he shouldn't do that. But yeah, we're right about to kill him, so we're just gonna save that. Actually, that's... I mean, it sucks, but we've, like... We're actually kind of close here. Depending on what we draw, we've got him. Okay, we kinda got him. Now, it is gonna suck. He's gonna get some card draw as he upticks, but we're just gonna chuck a Spire Bluff Canal from our hand. Ah, Chemist's Insight. Oh, come on, we're like... we're like right there. Now we're basically a heads up. If he has some sort of, like, Vraska's Contempt... The hell? This one you don't see a lot. Target opponent exiles cards at the top of their library until they exile a non-land. At the end of the turn, I can cast this card for free. Fine. Exiles 2 cards in their hands. 7 damage to target opponent, creature, or opponent controls, or... can you do that again? I mean, alright, I guess. Oh man, we're like right there. Come on, game. As long as he doesn't gain any life. There's a... I mean, let's see. We can get some shocks. Wizard Lightning... Like, 3 shock... 2 or 3 shocks... 3 more Wizard's Lightning and like 2 more Lightning Strikes, and we can... Oh, I see what he did now. And then I think we might win. We're like right on the edge of it. Okay. But if you block with it, you die, and if you attack with it, you die. I mean, you could Unmoored Ego and, like... I'm a little confused here. Because, like, you can do that, but, like, what do you name? Okay, Wizard's Lightning is a good one to name, but... Well, yes, that does take away some top decks. It also thins the deck so that I might draw more gas. Good game? Because if he blocks the Spellweaver Eternal, the Afflict 2 will kill him. Yeah! Okay. He is going to bring in a buttload of stuff. I don't think we need Pact of Negations. I don't think it's that bad. So we'll get some Swan Songs. He's basically running Nicol Bolas Tribal, so Dispute's actually kind of good. Cast an instant or sorcery card. Maybe like... like a Warlord's Fury. We'll try the Niv Mizzet. I'm not totally sold on the Niv here, but we'll see. Again, this is all kind of a... Well, it's not that new of an experience, but we're kind of just winging it and seeing what happens. You know, that's actually not that bad. It's not the most aggressive start, but it's something. I have a creature and things to do outside of the creature. Go ahead and pay the 2 life. We don't care that much about it. I suppose it would suck if he plays something really annoying. Alright, now we're making big boy decisions. Because I'm a game up, I think I can afford to take the chance. If I develop these 2 creatures and I can protect them, he's not giving him priority, so I think he doesn't have anything he can do with it. But if I can have this board stick, I think we're cooking. I mean, that's not the worst thing, honestly. Go ahead and do a island just to make sure auto tap doesn't screw us. And might as well just go. This opening is actually surprisingly good thanks to the Spellweaver. Oh, okay. We might literally have this game if we play this right. The Spellweaver Eternal draw kind of again shows that prowess is one of those like very underestimated keywords. Okay, the trick is, do I counter this or do I counter the thing at draw? I think we let it go. I think. I'd rather counter the big thing, the big fuck off thing he plays, than the card draw. Because he still had 2 cards in his hands no matter what happened. Let it be known that I'm not totally convinced on this. We'll do Wizard Retort because this is a conditional counter spell. Okay, so we'll do a red and a Heartfire. We have Negate up, and now we just pray to the heavens above that we can close this out. I think we can. 2 and 2. Cool. Granted, that's not exactly making use of the prowess on their turn, but it's, again, better to have, to be, you know, in spitting distance of killing someone. I think we're gonna not play the land, because we have enough to play basically everything in the deck, more or less. Besides the Niv Mizzet, but that's a big if. GG? this is the kind of thing where I was attempting to, and probably failing, and alluding to earlier, is that if you have to... We're just going to attack. Oh my god, I almost didn't have lethal. There we go. Pardon. That I was attempting to allude to earlier. As an aggro deck, but still being an Izzet deck and having access, or having the ability to sideboard into a, by all accounts, from an aggro deck into like a sort of tempo-y deck, if against a hard control deck, just a bog standard 1-for-1 waiting to cross the hump, if you sideboard into a more of a tempo game plan of sticking 1 or 2 minions and just defending and then trying to like blow them out in one big turn, that's how you deal with hard control decks. With those like Sultai mid-rangey, I generate value for a million goddamn years decks, you can actually transition into a mid-range deck yourself with things like the Chandra and even the Niv Mizzet, and you can attempt to play their game with varying degrees of success. And against aggro decks, you just kind of outrace them, or attempt to. And that's basic, or the basic principle on how you should be going into, for the most part, the big matchups. Combo's a little weird because you kind of got to go the tempo plan, but there are like very, very few, at least anecdotally, combo decks out there that you run into, so I wouldn't spaz too much. I'm not in love with this, but I think this will be a good keeper to show that Riddle Form can actually do a little bit of work if you let it. Huh. What are you doing? We'll play the blue because we have access to more red. I don't think there's anything I super give a shit about him playing. Are you playing mono brown? What are you playing? I'm in it. I'm in it. I don't know what this deck is, but God, I love spare supplies. I genuinely think that card is, like, awesome. So now we're just going to stick Riddle Form and figure out what the hell we're going against. Alright, homeboy has style, if nothing else. Now this is a, I think we go, I think we'll wait one turn to start popping off. And because I'm trying to feel it out against a deck that I've never seen, and again, to Matthew Darkflame, good on you, dude. You have to be some kind of mono brown rampy deck. Again, I'm in it. I am your man here. Okay, so we'll do you. We'll go ahead and shock his Mana Dork. It's not exactly bolting the bird. It's more shocking the mirror, though. Doesn't really have the same zhuzh to it. I will gladly accept the loss of 1 damage. I don't mind that much. Mana Geode. Dude, I am in it. Your deck is, like, genuinely fascinating to me. I love people who brew stuff. Matthew Darkflame, you are my man. I think we'll just go shock. In the off chance he plays another creature we kind of need to address. God, I love this dude. You are my boy. And I see someone like me took advantage of the daily deal of all the flag card backs. I bought America's and Japan's like the big goddamn weeb I am. I don't think we need to... Hang on. 1, 2, 3... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... because he can destroy a permanent... No. I think that's a silly thing to do, Max. We will go ahead and opt and see what we can draw. Maybe we'll hit something good. Oh, gladly. This will be good since we can... I don't... Oh, man, do I... No. I have the negate open. This is a mono brown deck. Don't win more, Max. Dial that shit in. Another mana rock. I actually will counter that. We'll go ahead and play the River Glide as the 1 health. We will go and opt. Save a Warlord's Fury if we need to go through some potential creatures here. Might as well play the other one. And I'm almost certain, without doing the math, that I threaten lethal next turn. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Almost for certain. Game. I have no idea what this dude is going to run in game 2. But I think we can just play like a tempo game and just chill. I don't think Mystical Dispute's actually that useful here. I think we're going to Swan Song and a Braid. We don't really need the Warlord's Fury. Dude did not appear to be running that much. We'll cut an Opt and maybe... might actually cut the Riddle form. I'm not over the moon about it. Hi, baby girl. I love you. But when you... That can only take... cuddling like that for so long. Before Dad's legs want to, you know, fall off. Not gonna lie. Not over the moon about this, but I think we'll be okay. Oh, yay! Okay, now we're good. If we stick the G2 and the Heartfire Immolator, we will, fingers crossed, be able to very quickly kind of run away with this game. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because I just drew a Swan Song, I'm actually going to do it like this. As we have discussed, if I did this correctly, discussed during the deck explanation stage, it is almost always better to counter whatever big honking thing they ramp into. The bird that you give them is of little to no consequence. And I guess we'll just do the same thing now that we both have the Swan Song and the Wizard's Retort up. And we're not going to threaten lethal, so again, we're ahead. Let's not screw this up and throw it away. Like a Forsaken Monument. Get the... Wait, what the... Enchantment? Yeah, oh, it was enchantment, sorry. Okay, sorry. That's still good. I was just confused for a second why it wasn't working. It's not artifact, it's enchantment, because it comes from Theros block. Do I have... lethal? 1, 2, 3, 4... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... Yeah. And just for style points... Game. Matthew Darkflame, I salute you, my dude. It was a mono brown that isn't just like the version that got ran in any big tourney. It was your own creation. I applaud you, my good sir. Going by the Matthew bit. We could... And you know, I think that's a good point to end off on. We show the deck, what the deck consists of, and try to loosely, again, if not very poorly, as I often do, explain what the deck is and what it hopes to do. Try to give very loose tips on how to sideboard. This is the Wizards Mark II version of this deck. I do hope you all enjoyed it. If you would like to, watch potentially live in the future, you can just look up Shut-In Shogun on Twitch if you want to watch live. Or you should, fingers crossed, if I've done this right, be able to look up Shut-In Shogun on YouTube and watch the VOD of this later if you, say, for whatever reason, you are, say, a VOD person, or you just like the ability to watch stuff over on your own speed, whatever that happens to be. Oh, and might as well... It's Shut-In Shogun, more or less like this. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.